There's something timeless about a bottle. It holds more than liquid. It carries a place, a season, a memory, a celebration, a quiet moment, a story waiting to be opened. Welcome to Bottled Stories. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Bottled Stories podcast. My name's Tim Tibbetts. I'm your host, along with my right hand, Rebecca.
Hello.
Who's always on the right. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that kind of is the whole purpose of this whole show. This is going to be about wine in the tropics. So the first thing we start with, obviously, it's a much longer process than you might think to actually get your favorite wines from around the world into a tropical island. As you would imagine, everything must come by boat. And that's not just because, from Europe to here, that's also from our warehouse in Grand Bahama to every other city of the Bahamas, because every other town, every other city or village is on its own island. Like, for example, from here in Grand Bahama, we put it on a boat to go to Nassau. And then it goes on another boat if it needs to go to Abaco or Eleuthera or Exuma, for example. And then for example, if once it gets to Abaco, then it gets put on another ferry to go to Hopetown or to Guanaqui or to any of the other little outer keys. But the process starts in the vineyard. We every year we meet with all of our producers in one place or another. Usually it's in Paris. And then once we agree over the course of many weeks of talks about what our needs will be for the year versus what their production is, because when you work with small producers, you have to remember that you're not the only one who buys their wine. In fact, in a small, tiny country of only 300,000 people, yes, we have a lot more tourists, but our basic population base is 300,000 people. We are probably the smallest country that is actually getting allotments from any of our producers. And so when we do that, we have to mitigate both what do we want versus what do they want, and what can they provide.
And sometimes it's a negotiation.
Very much so.
Yeah.
The perfect example is the wine that we are drinking right now.
We have it here.
I do. Yeah. So this is the wine in our glass. This is a highly sought after rosé wine, but the production is incredibly limited. So this is from Pio Cesare. This is the Rosy Nebbiolo rosé. But there's only 6,000 bottles of this are produced every year. Now, the problem with that is that I want 1,800 bottles.
I want all of
every
it.
year. Every year we want 1,800 bottles. And so here's the problem. If I take 1,800 bottles, that's basically 30% of the total allotment for the entire world. So that means a really big country of like 450 million people or 350 million people like the US can't have any at all.
Or it doesn't make sense for them to have it. Because if you are dividing 1,800 bottles amongst 35 states, just call it, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing.
That's 100 bottles a state.
Yeah. It can't take off.
No. So they don't even bother. So one of the things that they like to do,
which works to our benefit.
It's great for us, and this happens with a lot of wines. The other one that comes to mind very, very quickly is the Pichler Kreuzler wine from Elizabeth and Eric's daughter, Louisa. Mm-hmm. Louisa makes her own wine that's separate from the Pichler Kreuzler label. It still has a Pichler Kreuzler label on it, but it has a blue wash kind of painted label over the top of it. It is a Riesling that she has been making as a project since she was 14. And this year, the 2024 vintage, I I think there's between 300 and 600 bottles, I think. I'm not sure exactly how much of the production there is, but I know it's very low. Like 300 bottles is nothing. 600 bottles is nothing, but it's somewhere in that range. And we took 200 and no, 198 bottles of that wine.
But it makes sense to want to give it to somewhere that is more than a one-time buyer.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but it's also because we're so small. We have that with a lot of wines, a ton of wines. The whole Elio Altari collection, for example, we get wines. Yes, the allotments are small, but it's small for everybody. And so we end up getting some cool stuff that, you know, like if you were in Canada, for example, and you go to the LCBO in Toronto, you can't find any of these wines on the shelf. It's just not going to happen. They have 20,000 plus stores across the province. It is a monopoly owned by the government, so they have to divide it up amongst all of the stores. And so we're talking about only mass manufactured wines. If you have 25,000 stores, you need 25,000 cases minimum of everything. And those are 12 bottle cases in the Canadian market. And that's just to get you one 12 bottle case in every store. So we're talking about mass manufacturing just to be able to satisfy demand. And we don't work that way. We work with all small family producers. So from that point, once you've made these negotiations and you end up with cool wine that not necessarily anybody else can have, then it has to get from there to here. Now, we base all of our operations in Europe out of Burgos, Spain, which is in the northern part of Spain in the Rioja region. We have been working with the same logistics company. Well, actually, we've worked with two different logistics companies in Europe, but it was the same guy. He just moved from one company to another. And Ignacio Ortiz is the guy who basically, he takes care of us when it comes to that.
Handles all the logistics, which
everything.
is a lot.
And sometimes, you know, we have a special request, like flying the huge champagne bottles, the 30-liter bottles of Drapier, because I don't like putting those on a boat because they're very fragile and they can explode. So we throw those on a plane, and he does that logistics as well. But that team will go out from the central point in refrigerated trucks, and then we go to each individual winery and pick up the orders. Always in a refrigerated truck. Most of them will not release the wines unless the wines are refrigerated, especially because you're coming to a tropical climate. Then it goes back to a consolidation point, which is in Burgos. And then we load the container, which is a 40-foot shipping container that is a refrigerated container. We make sure that the temperature inside that container maintains a consistent 12 degrees Celsius for its entire trip. This gives us a little bit of breathing room if there's a problem.
So we get all the wines collected, they go to the warehouse in Burgos, they stuff the container, and then the container gets trucked or trained.
Usually trained, but in the case of natural disaster like happened last year, a large rainstorm flooded out the train tracks and destroyed all the tracks leading into the shipping port in Valencia, in the southern part of Spain. So we ended up having to truck multiple deliveries in the last year to Valencia. Now we're back to the train, I think. Burgos, then on a train to Valencia, onto the ship in Valencia. Normally, it's direct from Valencia to Freeport, Grand Bahama, about 16 days. But then sometimes, you know, something happens and it's
you get that email.
And it's just a bit of a cluster and you don't really understand why, but it's really not up to you to decide. We have a container that was supposed to arrive on the 16th of June. That's like right around when this is going to air. But the problem is we had booked originally a 16, 17 day direct shipment. And when it ended up on the ship, the only available ship to get it here, has 7 stops in between, which means it's going to not arrive in Grand Bahama until the very end of June. And here's where the problems arise. When you do all of this, sometimes this can take 2 months, if not more.
For the orders to the collections to the getting it on the container,
Yeah.
it can take 2 months.
And all of that that has the ability to change things from 1 month to the next month that you didn't foresee. Because we had planned on having a 16, 17 day direct shipment, we knew it would be here between 16th, 17th, 18th of June. So we agreed to do a catering job in Canada, leaving here on the 22nd of June to go to the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia for 10 days, a little more than 10 days. That's a problem because now we're not here when the container arrives.
Because then the logistics continue.
So when it gets here, someone goes to the harbor. We have to go from, we go from our office to customs. Our broker finishes the entry, and then we have to go to customs and pay that entry before the trailer can be released from the harbor. Then inland trucking will go and pick up the container. The container then has to move from the harbor to our facility. Then we have to get our unload team together. Everybody comes to the store and meets there, and then there's 4 guys that normally help with the unload process. These are all part of our team from Flying Fish. So it's just pulling people from one location to another location. And then we unload everything, put it away.
Well, we wait for customs first
Right.
because you have to make an appointment set for them to come and check everything.
And you
make sure
can't
there's
open the
nothing,
container until they've inspected it.
Make sure there's no bodies or whatever they're checking on there.
Guns and drugs is what I'm guessing they're checking for, which unfortunately for us is never in them. So once you get the permission to open the container, then we open the container and unload it all. And then we have to unpack each individual pallet that isn't a completed pallet. So a lot of times we do mixed pallets in order to get more product here in smaller quantities in order to get things moving, especially with new wines that nobody knows yet. We tend to use a lot of half pallets or mixed pallets. So when they come into the warehouse, then we have to unpack each mixed pallet so that we have access to each of the wines first to get some onto the store shelves, and then the rest to be able to access them when somebody orders it to be shipped. And then when that happens, someone from Nassau puts in a purchase order, from one of the big hotels. We have to go, first we create a quote system. Then the quote has to go back to them, then to be approved by multiple people. Then the quote gets turned into a purchase order. The purchase order comes to me. Then we fill the purchase order to the best of our ability. Hopefully everything is here. That all gets set aside. Then it all gets stamped with a sticker depending on where it's going. Each individual client vendor that we have has their own individual custom stickers and a custom color code. So once we get all the orders together on Wednesday mornings, we go to the ferry and we pack the pallets, wrap the pallets, label the pallets, then send them on another container ship to Nassau. That leaves, we do that on Wednesday midday. Usually we get it done. Thursday in the early morning, usually, in the wee hours of the morning, that ship will leave Grand Bahama and it will arrive in Nassau early in the morning on Fridays. So then Friday morning, when the ferry office in Nassau opens, we have our driver team in Nassau will go to collect the pallet. Then they have to break that pallet down and figure out how many stops that they have to make. Then they will allot each amount of stops to a different truck because they're going in different directions a lot of the time. And sometimes, like Atlantis, for example, is on Paradise Island, so that's going towards the east. And then someone else has got another half a pallet that's going to Bahamar, which is well out in the west. So if you try to do all of them in a row, A lot of times it just takes too much time.
And you lose the
And
delivery window.
You lose the delivery window, and
the
also
receiving end of things.
yeah, and also too, it ties up the drivers for too long. The traffic in Nassau is a horrendous nightmare, and so it can tie up a driver. One pallet can tie up a driver for a whole day if we don't spread it out and break it up.
Yep.
And we don't want to do that. So then it gets taken to the facility. Then it has to be checked in by the receivers, and each different resort has their own receiving rules or protocols that they like to use. So each box has to then be checked. Then the PO number is registered from the invoice back to a PO that was issued in their system. And then it's signed by the receiver. Then that signature gets photocopied or photoed and sent back to me. Then we can file that. So when something happens and we can't find something, we can go back and reference that, yes, it was received and this is the person who received it. There is a lot of logistics in making all of this work. And this was all before anybody has drank a single bottle of wine.
Or gone to a different island. Because Abaco has to get on another ferry boat.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then another ferry boat after that.
Depending on if it's on a key.
So for the people in Guanaqui, Calypsia, Villa, and Marina, those guys have a wonderful wine list full of our wines, and that's another 2 ferries after it gets to Nassau.
It is a journey from harvest to island life.
It is. So this is a really important thing that people have to understand when you come to a restaurant or to the store and you look at the pricing on a bottle of wine. First and foremost, you have to remember the duty structure and import taxes that happen in the Bahamas are the second most expensive in the world. So take into account that, and then also take into account how many sets of hands have to touch each bottle in order to get it to its final destination on your table. This is all important because while we try our very best to make sure that our prices are very low, and I still think they're probably for what we sell, they are the best in the country. There is a lot of people that have to get paid along the way, and that's important that everybody takes their piece, because otherwise the whole thing breaks down, because nobody wants to do anything for free. So when that happens, just once you finally get your bottle, be thankful that it got there.
Enjoy it.
And that it didn't break. In all of those sets of hands, it didn't break.
You think of how many ups and downs and ins and outs, and it's needs to be well packed.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, it's a huge undertaking. And
for lots of people, lots of parties
Yeah.
are involved in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about that the next time you order a bottle of wine in a restaurant at one of the resorts, or even at any restaurant in the country, because the process is the same. Once it's here, let's talk about international wines, local flavor. What do you think, because you're kind of more on the day-to-day part of this than I am, what's your favorite pairings, like wines with local ingredients?
Well, I guess the local sort of things to talk first would be conch salad, like cracked lobster, cracked conch, fritters. I mean, those are the basic, like, come to the island, these are the things you need to have. I would say conch salad, definitely higher acidity because it's a ceviche, tomatoes, peppers, hot peppers, conch. And Riesling, Gruner Veltliner, definitely the higher acidity.
Yeah. Vermentino,
Suave. Depending on what island you're on, the citrus changes for conch salad.
Right.
So sometimes it's sour orange heavy, sometimes it's lime heavy, sometimes it's orange heavy. So that would affect the wine, but definitely fresh, crisp, clean. Like crack conch or crack lobster, I would say the same, but maybe add some bubbles, some champagne, maybe with a little bit of body. This is a Blanc de Blanc, which is a little bit sort of
Fresher.
fresher.
I found this one much fresher than the others in the lineup. This is Drapier Blanc de Blanc. 90% Chardonnay and 10% Blanc Rye, and it is a very cool wine. And we've had many people compliment it based on the fact that it feels lighter. It's much lighter. It's easier to drink. You can drink. A lot of ladies buy this bottle because they don't want to switch from champagne. They'll just drink champagne.
It's got longevity.
It does, yeah.
It's an all-day drink.
It's an all-day drink. So Drapier Blanc de Blanc, that's probably my favorite for things like cracked lobster, cracked conch, things like that. I love the toastiness of a breading with the toastiness from the wine. I think it works really, really well. Plus the bubbles, the acidity help to really clean your mouth of all the extra oil and fat and stuff. So that's a really good one.
But my favorite pairing of all times is local stone crab and a rotor Veltliner.
Yep.
Austria.
Yep.
Wagram,
Wagram is really known for rotor Veltliner. Rotor Veltliner is a natural mutation of the Gruner Veltliner grape, so it has kind of like the way that Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris, the way that they're actually a natural mutation of Pinot Noir, and they have like an orange skin. The same with rotor Veltliner. Rotor Veltliner has that orangey kind of skin.
Hence the
rotor. That's the red Veltliner. But it is just a natural mutation. It's not
a red, it's a white wine.
It is a white wine. And it wasn't
bodied.
crossbred with something else to make it. It wasn't genetically engineered. It's just a natural mutation. So it's a little richer, a little bit fuller in body.
And can hold oak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And with the stone crab, and stone crab is a local delicacy that is actually renewable.
Yep, sustainable.
They are supposed to take one claw, and when they have one claw left, they're supposed to be able to defend themselves and grow it back. And
the claw will regenerate, so it just reproduces a new claw every year.
And it is just the heaven from the sea.
Yeah, probably my favorite seafood ingredient for sure.
So you make a crab cake, a little slaw, spicy mayo, rotor Veltliner.
Killer.
Best.
Bernard Ecker's Ried Steinberg is the best rotor Veltliner pairing for stone crab.
Yes.
And we've tried a lot of them.
And we have it.
Yes, we've tried a lot of them.
We have.
Absolutely.
We have our own Seagate label of a rotor Veltliner.
Yep.
It is not quite as full-bodied as the Ecker one, but it is high in minerality. It's got nice viscosity. It's higher in alcohol. Made by Franz Bayer, and that was one of our actually first projects with Seagate.
Yep.
It has our label on it. It was meant for flying fish by the glass, and it goes really well with those richer foods as well.
And I think it's still on by the glass. Yeah, still on by the glass at Flying Fish. So if you ever want to try a rotor Veltliner and you've never had one before and you're wondering, drop by Flying Fish and just sample a glass. You can get a glass behind the bar. It's pretty much always on the menu by the glass.
Yep. For a while yet.
Yeah, once it runs out, then we'll have to rethink it. But it's been there for a while. Next thought is the Bahamas.
Speaking of what do we have here?
Tropics. Yeah, the tropics in general, not just the Bahamas, but any hot weather climate. This could be Florida. It could be, Texas or Louisiana. It could be Mexico. It could be anywhere in the Caribbean. It could be Dubai, right? Hot weather climates require specific things that you need to know about wine. First and foremost, the biggest problem that we have in the world these days is that we drink our wines too warm. Red wine service temperature 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like 20 degrees, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That is service temperature for red wine. All right. Once wine hits 78 degrees Fahrenheit, it starts to cook, and it doesn't take very long. So if you have it in the back seat of your car and you leave it in the back seat of your car for 6 hours while you're gone to work or you're going shopping or going golfing or whatever you're doing, that bottle of wine is no good when you come back to your car.
Remember those corked vodka bottles we
Yeah.
had in the back of our car in
Yep.
Abaco that when we opened the rental car, all you could
It
smell was
vodka
vodka?
because the corks just exploded
out.
out. The heat actually activated the alcohol and
Yep.
it actually pushed the corks out of the bottles. This happens a lot when you ship wines that are not refrigerated, which is why we always refrigerate everything. The process is called pistoning. And what happens is this little bit of air above the bottle where the fill level's about here, this part here to here where the cork is, that heats up and then the air expands and it pushes the cork out. So if you're ever trapped on a deserted island and you don't have a cork, you take the bottle and you put it on its side like this, just slightly elevated so that wine doesn't come pouring out. And you take some sort of light lamp, whether it's a lighter or a stick on fire, and you heat this part of the bottle and it will push the cork out and you can drink your wine.
I mean, if you don't have a corkscrew.
If you don't have a corkscrew.
And a cork, gotcha.
No corkscrew.
I mean, life lessons.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or take your shoe and just beat it on the bottom a few times and it will pop the cork out.
I'm going with.
I've had to get into wine before.
I'm going with. I don't want to be deserted on an island.
No, fair enough. So service temperatures, definitely red wines we serve too hot. So try and keep your red wines below 70 degrees, please. You'll see in the background here, all of our wines are in here, but it is actually quite cold in here. Our AC is always set around 70 degrees. So we have too much wine in here for it to go bad. So we've got...
That's our excuse.
This is one of the reasons. So we have two cats, and we have a spare bedroom down the end of the hall. My nephew Connor, who edits all these videos and is producer of the show, he lived here for the last 6 months, and now he's just gone back to Canada for the summer. And since he moved out, they pretty much never leave that room because the AC is not on in that room, so they can go in there and they're nice and warm because it's quite cold out here.
It is cool.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, but it's
all for the wine.
It's all for the wine. It's got nothing to do with the menopausal wife at all. Nothing. So, service temperatures, keep them a little colder. Rosés, you're going to want to serve in that 4 to 6 degrees kind of range Celsius, upwards of 60 degrees max Fahrenheit. A little bit colder. I like them a little bit colder, especially here, because once you pour them, they are going to warm up in the glass pretty quickly.
Yep.
A little fuller bodied one like this one. This is the Pio Cesare Rosé Nebbiolo Rosé. I like this one a little bit warmer, simply because it has more body and it has more structure. Yeah. It's actually really, really great with food, especially off of a wood-fired grill that has some spice, like jerk chicken, jerk pork, something like that. That is cooked on a wood fire. This stuff is fantastic with that, and I would serve it just slightly warmer, around 10, maybe 10 degrees Celsius to 12 degrees Celsius, and you kind of get the same kind of explosion of aroma and flavor that you get from like a big Chardonnay that you want to serve around that temperature too. We also serve our white wines too cold in the Bahamas and also in the rest of the Caribbean and the warm temperature parts of the world. We tend to serve white wines much too cold. For them to actually express themselves. But I understand, you want to keep them cold because it keeps your mouth cold, cools your body down. We do drink way more white and rosé in the Bahamas than we do red, and it's simply because it's just so hot.
And the reds that we, especially in the summer when it's hot, I mean, they're lighter reds.
Yeah, we tend to pick lighter reds, and we like to pick reds that we can serve even a little bit colder. This is a Lunga Nebbiolo from El Vioconio called Montegrilli. Montegrilli is the name of the vineyard site where it comes from. This is in the Novello commune. This wine for me is one of my favorite summer wines because you can serve this as cold as like 60 degrees, and it's when the fruit really explodes. It really, like, they're doing a partial whole cluster carbonic maceration with this wine, and for people who are not wine nerds, that means absolutely nothing to you. But for me, what it does is it gives you this intense aromatic fruitiness, especially in the raspberry kind of spectrum. That's a technique that was very famous for like what made Beaujolais a very famous appellation for fresh and fruity wines was this carbonic maceration, and they use partial carbonic maceration for making this wine since the 2022 vintage. And it's absolutely fantastic. And serve it a little bit chilled. You can also serve, like Barbera or Dolcetto slightly chilled. They're really, really good that way.
Barbera, yeah.
I really like Barbera.
If you have one of those, we always use the frozen sleeves. You don't have all of the condensation from an ice bucket. And just put that on there for
10 minutes, 15 minutes, bring the temperature down. Yeah. Another little trick you can do with your red wines before you serve them is just before you're going to have dinner, throw them in the fridge for 15 minutes and let them come down, or throw them in the fridge the night before you want to drink them, and then take them out an hour before you want to drink them and let them warm back up a little bit. And
while you're drinking it and serving it, just pour, a little bit so that the whole glass doesn't
get warm. Yep. Yeah. So
it looks like you're not getting much, but you'll end up getting it all.
Yeah, those are interesting. Those are cool temperature tips. I really think that when people learn how to serve and drink the wines properly, their experience becomes so much better that all of a sudden this is how you start to get wine drinkers out of people who are not necessarily wine drinkers before. Because when you drink a wine and it's the way it's supposed to be, the way the winemaker intends it, this is when you really have the greatest experience. This is why we have this conversation all the time about why is wine always better in the winery than it is when I get it home? Well, it's because A, you're drinking it exactly as the winemaker wants you to drink it, and B, it's never moved.
It hasn't had that whole journey that we just talked about.
It hasn't had that whole journey. So they are incredibly good condition. Yeah. And, wine bruises, wine gets bumped up a bit. So, letting wine sit is always a good idea. That's why we have such a big storage area. But if you don't have anything like this, obviously most people don't. You can probably see in the background behind Rebecca, there's a couple of wine fridges in that corner. Those are perfect. Those wine fridges are all you need. You need one little wine fridge, like a half-size one like we have. That keeps all your wines at service temperature, and then you don't have to have a huge collection, but you can store 40 bottles, 48 bottles, and then they're there when you want them.
And it makes sense for many reasons to buy cases.
Yeah. Okay, so next topic, let's talk about building a cellar. Normally, cellars tend to be broken down if you're doing one for storage, like for long period of time storage. You want to have about 25% champagne bubbles, but storable bubbles, not bubbles that, not Prosecco. I mean, you want to have some of that on hand for, certain events, but if you're storing wines to age them, Prosecco is not necessarily a great choice unless they are really, truly exceptional ones. So 25% bubbles, and then I like to do 30% to 40% white, and then the other 40%, 35-40% of reds. Typically, you would be storing 50% of your cellar would be red wine, typically,
but here,
if not 60%. But in the tropics, you have to have a different vibe, because at the end of the day, we just don't drink enough red wine. A lot of people drink red wine. Don't get me wrong. It is definitely something that's happening. But I find the longer you live here, if you're visiting, you're not going to change your...
Don't change your habits.
You're not going to change your habits. Yeah. Right? You're going to drink red wine because that's what you drink at home. Also, there's a lot of people that just prefer red wine. They just don't drink white, regardless of the situation.
We have a lot of people come in and say that.
They just won't drink white wine. Mm-hmm. So, I don't understand. Anyway, a whole other topic. Drink what you want to drink. Because the longer you stay here, the more acclimatized you get to the actual climate that's here. You just don't want to drink red wine. It's just too damn heavy. So if you do drink red, you pick lighter ones. You pick ones that can be chilled, served a little cooler. That's the way we do it. So those are not going to be, for the most part, big age-worthy wines. Yeah, you can keep them 3 to 5 years, maybe even 5 to 10 for great versions. But you're not keeping them for your children or for your grandchildren.
And what we found here is lots of people aren't keeping wine in their cellar for your children.
Right.
They're keeping it here because they're here 6 months a year or 3 months or 10 months, not all the time.
Yeah.
And so you don't want.
Yeah. In the Bahamas, we've noticed the people who are aging wines that are keeping great wines and keep them either for investment purposes or for, to hand down to their children or just to enjoy wines when they're actually at their peak. Those people are doing that in a different location. They're not doing it in the Bahamas. They use their Bahamas home as a vacation home. Now that could be just a small condo in a little apartment place here in Grand Bahama, or it's a $40 million house in Nassau or in Baker's Bay or something in Abaco. The world takes all kinds, but for the most part, nobody is actually aging wine in the Bahamas for that purpose, unless you happen to be kind of the offshoot like us. Where we have a fairly big collection of wine. But our thing about it is our collection of wine is different than most people, because what you see here in our house, our collection here in the house, which isn't, there's maybe 200 bottles here, which is, for most people, that they would think that is an enormous collection of wine. This is what we drink like in a monthly basis. This is just the wines that are on rotation. None of these wines are here for keeping. We don't keep them here for storage. Yeah. The storage wines we have a section in the warehouse of Seagate, on one of the very top shelves where we keep our own personal wine for aging. So we put them up there where we can't touch them. We can't just walk by, grab a bottle, and off we go. So when you are aging wines in the Bahamas, which a lot of people are, you may want to actually ask, like if you're in Grand Bahama, it's no problem. You can come to us and ask, and we can store collections for you. It's a very minimal fee, and we'll store it for as long as you want, and give you a section in the warehouse up on top of a shelf where no one can access it. And you can store your wines there, or even when you're gone, like if you buy wines from us from the store and you just want to keep them until next year when you come back, you're leaving April, May, and you want to come back in November, we'll keep them for the summer for you. We do it all the time for people. So that's something you can do. Or we always suggest investing in a small little fridge like this, and that will keep your wines fine when you're not around.
But you don't want to store them in the fridge.
Right. You can. It just they're not really going to age that way, because what happens, cold temperature actually, it slows the aging process down basically to a crawl or a standstill. The optimum temperature for storing wines over long periods of time is 55 degrees, which is only 14 degrees more than what your refrigerator is. So it's not like your refrigerator is doing damage to it. You're much better to keep your wines in your refrigerator than you are to keep them in your living room without your air conditioning on.
Yes.
The only problem, though, with a conventional refrigerator, and this is a bit of an issue, they're dry.
And the vibration.
They're very, very dry.
Cha-chunk on, cha-chunk off.
Yeah, the vibrations, it's not something you want to do, but it's not really going to hurt it that much. It's not doing that much to it over the course of a long period of time, because it's so few and far between where it's doing that. But the biggest issue is the dryness, because it's going to shrink the cork. So if you have your bottles in the refrigerator and they're standing upright and you leave for 6 months, when you come back, the corks will probably have shrunk and oxygen's probably gotten into that bottle, and those bottles are probably going to be bad. Now, the one thing you have going for you is that it is in the refrigerator, so there's that much.
What if you lay them on their side?
And if you lay them on your side, then that tends to be a little bit better, because you are still going to get some sort of shrinkage from the outer portion of the cork, and you hope to God that the inside portion stays moist enough because it's in contact with the wine liquid itself, and that will keep it wet, keep it moist. So hopefully that is going to keep it okay. I do encourage people to collect wine for two reasons. Number one, you never know when something's not going to be available again. And when you live on an island, we tend to hoard a lot of stuff. Just like simple things, paper towels and toilet paper or things like that. You have
people
hundreds and hundreds of rolls kicking around your house because you never know if the store is not going to have it.
I have people texting me or calling me all the time. Have you seen organic milk? Have you seen this? Where would I find this? Is this it? So when you see something that you know you're going to want, I mean,
and if it will last,
buy it. Yeah, you just buy it.
Buy as much of it as you can, and then you just store it.
Like that time I bought $200 worth of gluten-free
ramen noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've
and
never
again,
seen
they've never
them
been back again. So that's exactly why.
Yeah.
We do encourage people to collect wines for that reason, but also because for me, one of the great joys of being a wine drinker is the historical part of it. And history can only really be enjoyed once it's actually become history. And that means aging them. They need time.
Mm-hmm.
And the evolution of a wine bottle is really fascinating. And it's really interesting the way the wine changes from year to year to year. And this is why I always suggest buying wine by the cases, because you can have one now and then another one next year, another one the year after that, another one the year after that. And you can document how that wine has changed. Now, we don't buy anything by the cases. We tend to buy it by the multiple cases, which is just because we drink too much. But it is what it is. And on that note, I hope you guys learned a little bit about what it takes to get wine to the Bahamas, what it's like to store wine in the Bahamas, what to even eat with your wine here in the Bahamas. Anything else you want to add to that?
I think that in a land where summer never ends, fresh whites, nice rosés, cool reds, store them right, and enjoy them because they all have a story to tell.
Yep, it's true. Thank you guys very much for joining us again. Appreciate it very much as always. Please go back and check out some of our other videos as well. If there's anything you ever want to see, make sure you comment below. Let us know what you guys want to watch, and always let us know what you thought of the videos. It helps us choose and decide what other videos we want to make. If you happen to be in the tropics, enjoy yourself a good bottle of wine. Keep it cooler than you think you should. If you are not in the tropics, come and visit us and I'll share a glass of wine with you. Cheers. Till we unbottle the next story, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.